From the shadows of the coven to the lips of the living, VE Cosmetics conjures up a beauty so good, it must be witchcraft. Vegan and cruelty-free for those who walk between the worlds. VE Cosmetics. Grab a discount with my affiliate code BELLWITCH at the checkout. BELLWITCH, all one word, for a 10% discount on your entire order. And a little tip for this witch. Now then, welcome to the Bell Witch podcast with me, Swailes, the friendly grey witch, witching in the 21st century. I hope you are well and thank you for tuning in. This episode is a Moot Loot episode with a fantastic, lovely soul of a guest, Thea Ayres of Leeds. This is her first podcast appearance, so yay! And yeah, the nerves were there, but she did well, bless her, and she shared such gems of wisdom and pearls of knowledge. Thea's relationship with the goddess and how that is perceived in terms of working with tarot. And she also shares some very personal poetry with us, which I was absolutely honoured to be trusted with, so thank you very much. It was very powerful. We talk about the people and the poets who inspired us, including the legend that is Rachel, Pollack, and the poet that is Tempest. Whilst editing the interview, there is a bit where we check the pronouns of Kay to make sure we get it right. And I thought to myself, I probably should leave that in as a person who's very aware of her own privilege and learning on the go. It's okay to check pronouns and adjust your language around it when you know better. Know better, do better, right? When it's normalised to ask and never assume, we're allowed to mess up and ask questions and respectfully adjust our language. And the more that comes commonplace, the better humanity will be. Welcome to the new Patreon members. In no particular order, we have Catherine, Bella, Stephanie, Sherry Ward, Cheryl, Lucy, Janice, Michelle, Bianca Torres. Great to have you here. Hope you love the Patreon. Thank you for supporting me. In other news, I went to London to visit the Golden Lobes Award. I went down Wednesday afternoon, did the award ceremony, got the bus back throughout the night and was back home by 6 a.m, so it was a demon trip. I didn't win, but I was pretty amazed that I got even that far, to be honest, because it was very mainstream. It was very glamorous, and shout out to my table podcast pals for the evening, Susie and Esther of hilarious comedy podcast, limited time only. They were an absolute joy to spend time with, and previous Golden Lobe winners, and also got highly commended, I think, for the best scripted show. Congratulations to them. I shall link them in the show notes. I also connected with Robbie Fox of Neuroses Journal, which I pretty much binged on the way home on the night bus because it is absolutely wild and an amazing, fun, fictional podcast about a phantom in London who does the comedy circuits, but loads of really strange things happen. It's only a 5-minute segment one, but it is so good. Think like goth monsters, Stephen King, Pink Floyd The Wall. It is really hard to describe, but I connected with him because he looked as subcultured and as fish out of water as I did. I mean, I were in horns with a feather shoulder boa and sparkles and stuff, and he were proper goffed up in guyliner. Love a bit of guyliner, badges, patches all over his denim jacket. So I was a bit like, I need to talk to him because he's my kind of person. And he were a right dude, so I'm glad I did. And that's what it's all about, really, connecting with other independent podcasts and, of course, supporting them. In terms of the awards, I've got to say there wasn't much variety and it wasn't very diverse. It was just a lot of, like, white guys winning stuff and people re-winning stuff. Maybe that's just what the comedy is like in the UK. I am not a comedian. I was well out of my depth. I enjoyed it and loved the experience, but I probably won't enter it again because I don't think the Bell Witch podcast was in the right place. Any excuse, though, to dress up and possibly win something. I've got to admit, I was a bit miffed afterwards because I was really sure, until I got there, that I was going to win the Blooper Award. Immediately after, and on the way home, I was saying, that's it now, I'm going to give up. I'll do a few more this year and then I'm going to throw a towel in. And then a few hours later, I can't wait to enter more podcast awards. What is she like? Silly. Welcome, listeners, to another fantastic, wholesome Moot Loot episode. With me today, I have a lovely guest, a fellow Leeds witch, poet, and tarot slinger mystic. May I welcome Thea Ayres to the Bell Witch podcast.
Hi, Swailes. Thank you for having me.
Hello, my love. Yeah, it's funny because you messaged me ages ago. LinkedIn had got broken into and I had this flurry of spam in my inbox and I missed quite a lot of guests because it were all like, hey, big do you want to have a girl? And I'm like, what? What is this? Lionel? They're calling me Lionel? Who is Lionel? So I freaked out quite a lot. It stopped now and I'm still going through the spam and lo and behold, your message was there and I was like, oh my God, have I missed the Leeds witch? So here you are.
Here I am. Hi, everybody listening.
Is this your first podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, so big moves.
A little bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah, welcome and you'll do great. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the kind of witch you are, please?
I'm a tarot reader and a poet, and I guess I would call myself a mystic or a yogini, and I have a devotion to the great goddess, or the divine mother, I call her. All of the practices that I have are kind of forms of devotion to her.
How did you discover witchcraft?
That's a great question. When I was a teenager, I got really into meditation. It wasn't witchcraft exactly, but that was the first thing. And then life got in the way and my spirituality kind of fell by the wayside for a few years. I felt sometimes sort of a connection or a belief in nature spirits during that time. So sometimes when I was walking in the woods or in the moors, I would sense that there were beings around me. I couldn't see them or hear them, but I could sense a kind of loving presence. That was it for a while. And then a few years ago, I went through a hard time in my life. I was depressed and it was a hard moment in my gender transition as well. And I had a kind of spiritual awakening, you could say, at that time. And I started to receive visions of the Divine Mother, I call her, the great goddess, of various goddesses from different pantheons. And so I started to practice tarot readings for myself. And I started practicing yoga as a way of connecting with her. So tarot was a kind of a form of prayer for me in the beginning. A way of speaking to the Divine Mother and letting her speak to me. And I started writing, I'd always written poetry, but I started to write more devotional poetry to the Divine Mother. So that was kind of the origin of my becoming a witch. I've never done some of the more classic witchy things, like I've never done spell work or worked with crystals, for example. Yeah, so that was kind of how I got into witchy stuff for myself. That was a few years ago. And then more recently, I started to read tarot professionally. The origin of it was mostly that I wanted to connect more to the community, especially the queer community. And I wanted to meet people and hear about people's lives and people's struggles and people's spirituality. And I wanted the freedom to do a kind of work that was where I could actually be myself and let other people be their self. So that was what made me want to start reading professionally.
Before this time, was tarot part of your life as a younger person, or is it very much of the time?
Only for about 3 years, I think. That was about the time that I had this whole kind of spiritual awakening moment, and that was when I got into tarot. Yeah, I'd always thought it was cool, but intimidating. So I'd never been kind of brave enough to try. And then actually my first deck was an oracle deck. It was called the Divine Feminine Oracle. I know that a lot of people have mixed feelings about Divine Feminine, Divine Masculine. Because I was having these visions of goddesses, it was kind of the perfect oracle deck, and my friend got it for me. And then I got this tarot deck, and the tarot deck I use now, I got a little more recently, but my first tarot deck was called the Tarot of the Moon Garden.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of it?
I own it, I think.
Do you?
I've got a lot of tarot. I am slightly addicted to buying them.
Do you read with it often? What do you think of it?
I don't read with it often. I look at it because it is beautiful, isn't it? Like,
isn't it?
It's so bright and quite mystical and quite theatrical. It's beautiful. And I should use it. I don't know why I don't, but I have that many decks. I have too many, really.
It has like this sort of the perfect deck to start with for me. Although some of the cards are actually not that easy to read because they have quite simple images without always people on them, but it has this lovely, like, fairy tale, childlike kind of vibe.
It does, yeah.
So it makes you feel like a little child playing with it, which I think is the perfect sort of attitude to learn something new.
Especially tarot.
Yeah. You've got to have that beginner's mind, haven't you?
Yeah. Do you read in person or do you do them online?
A bit of both, mostly in person. I've done quite a few pop-ups at queer venues around Leeds. So I've done quite a few pop-ups at the Bookish Type, the queer bookshop in Leeds. And I've also done one at Dirt Dykes, at Wharf Chambers, one at Flamingos. That's probably my favourite place to read. And a few other, not exclusively queer spaces, a few other places as well. I love to do readings at my house with like private clients, just because then you have the luxury of time and you can have I've had quite a few really quite long readings where you can really get into depth and there's lots of time for both people to talk, and you can go to a deeper level of interpretation when it's just a private reading. But yeah, I do them online as well for people who aren't in Leeds.
It's such a personal thing, isn't it, getting a tarot reading? And it's quite an honour to do them for people.
It is. It's just my favourite thing to do, really, is to give a tarot reading. It's such a beautiful way of getting to know somebody. It's like, when sometimes you meet a stranger and you just have this random, beautiful interaction with a stranger, and it's the most heartwarming thing. And with tarot, you get to do that again and again and again. Because the tarot, the cards connect people. They bring you together, and it's such a beautiful way of having special conversations with people.
You mentioned that you don't do spells, and that is absolutely fine. I don't do that many spells, to be honest. I do other things, and I presume you do the same, like the whole nature thing, having a relationship with nature, and rituals. Like, it'll be amazing how much we go through as life, and we do rituals all the time, and we don't even know it.
That's true.
Do you have any rituals that you do for your tarot readings in preparation?
When I do them at home, I like to burn sage beforehand as a way of cleansing the deck and clearing my mind and clearing the client's mind. Obviously, I can't do that if I'm in somebody else's space. But then I just like to have a moment to just ground. For myself, I always have a little bit of quiet time before I do tarot readings. And then when I sit down with a client, I just invite them to take a few deep breaths and to feel their bum in their seat, to feel their own body weight. I ask them to clear their mind of any expectations that they have about maybe what they want to get from the card reading. And then I like my client to touch the deck as well as me, either just by, if I'm doing lots of quite short readings, then I might just ask them to choose a pile of cards if I just split the deck. But if I've got the time, I'd like to ask them to shuffle the deck as well, because then I think by touching the deck, they form a kind of connection with the spirit of the deck, and then you can have more of a three-way conversation.
It's quite
So, yeah.
controversial, isn't it? 'Cause I remember when I was growing up, my mum read tarot cards
Mm.
and nobody were allowed to touch her deck, not even me.
Ah,
So it's interesting that you want people to shuffle. And maybe that's the way
yeah,
it is now. Maybe it's more common because there is something about the physical shuffling
yeah.
of the deck.
I think you do need to have something to kind of to show respect or reverence towards the deck. So most people have like a cloth on the table, so the tarot deck always goes on the cloth and not on the table itself. Sometimes I say a little prayer in my head, not with clients, just because some people might not like it, but I sort of feel like there's a certain frame of mind to approach the deck with, and it's kind of like the frame of mind you might approach a deity. There's like an element of reverence to it, but then also an element of like playfulness and familiarity, because the deck is kind of like your friend, but it's a friend who is much wiser than you and much older. And so you kind of have to show them a little bit of deference as well, I think.
You
So I
just
can see
use,
why people wouldn't want others to touch the deck.
yeah. And when
What
I
makes you
go for tarot readings and they go, there's the deck, I'm always a bit like, am I allowed to touch this? Because I
Yeah,
grew up
that's
with
what
it.
people. I always ask people to touch it, and they're kind of like, "Oh, really?" Like,
It's so funny how it changes.
Mm.
But you mentioned the goddess. So when you do a reading, is the goddess there with you, like in your mind's eye, like helping you with your readings?
Yeah, but I sort of have this idea of the goddess that that's what I call her, but she is this unknowable, unnameable mystery, and goddess is just the name I have for a concept that I have of her. I also like to, it depends on the reading and the client, but I like to find out what the client believes in, because that's the concept and that's the language that will become mine for the reading. The goddess is there always. For me, she's always there, whether I'm reading or not only in moments of ritual anymore. It used to be that I had to do something to feel her presence, but she isn't always there as a goddess. Sometimes she's there in some other form entirely.
What other form?
Like, for example, the goddess can change gender, just like people can. So sometimes the goddess is a god. Like if I have a client who is really into Pan, then the goddess becomes Pan. She kind of changes into Pan. Or if my client loves nature, then she becomes Mother Nature itself. She becomes the animals and the plants. Or if I have a client who's very interested in the workings of fate, then she becomes the master of fate.
I love this.
She
Yeah.
can be anything.
Yeah, I can relate because I have something similar with the god and goddess as a couple.
Mhm.
Like, I don't really name deities that much, although I often think of it. But throughout most of my witchcraft, it is like there's a male aspect and a female aspect of the vibration of earth, of like the essence. So it isn't a gender thing. It is like the balance, the day and night, the yin and yang. It works so well because how can we exist without those two balancing energies?
Right.
So I love what you're saying. It makes complete sense to me. It's beautiful.
It's the whole idea of like a masculine and a feminine force is it's so endlessly fascinating, isn't it? I know some people, some people worry that it's like gender essentializing or stereotyping or something like that to talk about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, or that it's putting human labels onto the divine. And I can see that, but I think it can be quite radical in its own way. I love the idea of like the divine hermaphrodite as well, as an image of the wholeness of both forces. People sometimes say that the Fool card and the World card in the tarot, that they're both androgynous or intersex or non-binary in some way. And I love that. I always think of them that way. I think of the Fool as having no gender, because the split of like Shiva and Shakti hasn't taken place yet. And then the world is all genders because Shiva and Shakti have merged through their love and their marriage into one being again that contains all genders, just like we do.
Would you say that's one of your favourite cards, the Fool?
Yeah. What's your favourite card, Swailes?
I quite like the Tower. The older I get, I used to be quite scared of the Tower.
Mm-hmm.
And now I realise it's quite a big positive thing. You've just got to lose something to gain something, you know, making it quite simple. Stuff's going to happen, but don't be scared of it because that'll give you the lightning strike to move yourself. And that's quite a new thing for me. I would say the last sort of 2-3 years of being like, actually, yeah, I like the Tower.
Mm-hmm. The Tower is also like divine revelation. Can I show you for the video version of this?
Yeah, absolutely.
The version of the Tower from the deck that I use, the Shining Tribe Tarot. Let me see if I can find it. It's such a beautiful version of the Tower.
Who's this deck by?
It's by Rachel Pollack.
Hey!
The wonderful Rachel Pollack. Godmother of modern tarot, trans icon, trans sapphic icon, and genius. So yeah, this is...
Oh, wow.
The deck is... You see how the figure is on top of the tower and they're being struck by a bolt of lightning. There's like this ladder up to the stars and the tower is on fire. It's like Moses at the top of the mountain, you know? It's like receiving the voice of God, but it's too awe-inspiring and terrifying. So that's why it feels like the tower.
All the red.
Yes. Passion, fire, destruction, desire. The pictures in this deck are so beautiful. Rachel Pollack she was many things. She was an author. She wasn't a professional artist. She was drawing her deck just as an example to then show to a professional artist. And then she spoke to her professional artist friend, whose name I've forgotten. I might look that up actually, because she was friends with this really fascinating artist who created these like big sculptures of tarot archetypes, like a big mother goddess that you could like walk into her body and stuff like that. But she showed her example sketches to her friend and she said, no, you must just use these because these are perfect. So there's something wonderfully childlike about the art because it's not by a professional artist and it just adds this like level of authenticity to it, which I adore. Rachel Pollack she was friends with a lot of famous people, I think. Oh, it was Nikki de Saint Vale or de Saint Farley who created these like monumental, the Tarot Garden it was called.
I feel like I should know this. I know Rachel Pollack really only from the obvious book, you know, the 78 Degrees of Wisdom. Because my mum had that on her shelf. So that is, embarrassingly enough, really all I know about her, which is no good. I need to look into it all.
She wrote so many, 78 Degrees of Wisdom is incredible. It's like it's the most influential book on modern tarot, isn't it? Actually, I didn't read the 78 Degrees of Wisdom until I'd read quite a few of her other books. Actually, the first thing I ever read by her was years before I even got into the tarot. And it was this essay that she wrote in this transgender feminist journal called Archetypal Transsexuality. It's all about the mystical and symbolic side of being trans and of gender transition. It's talking about the history of like transgender priestesses in ancient times and the power of gender transition to transform you, body and soul. And so then when I got into the tarot and I realized that it was the same Rachel Pollack, then I got really excited. So then I got this book by her that isn't even about the tarot. It's called The Body of the Goddess. And it was this book that she wrote based on her pilgrimages to the ancient sites in Crete and Malta where people used to worship the goddess. So it's kind of like part feminist spirituality book and part travelogue. It was really revolutionary because back then, feminist goddess worshipping was quite trans-exclusionary or could be quite trans-exclusionary. So there were groups that wouldn't allow trans people to be in. And Rachel Pollack and her wife, they had been excluded from groups So for her to write a book where she completely ignores all of it and just writes about how she sees the goddess is so awesome. So yeah, that was the second thing I read by her. And then I just devoured everything I could find. So yeah, she has this other amazing book about the tarot called Through the Forest of Souls, where she doesn't go through them card by card, but it's just an exploration of how to push the tarot to its limits. So my favorite bit in the book is she likes to do these wisdom readings where rather than asking for guidance for herself or a client, she just asks the tarot for some wisdom about maybe like a religious or philosophical question. And she asked the tarot, "Did you give God a reading when he created the world?" And the tarot said yes. So then she said, "Show me the reading that
Oh
you
my
gave
God.
God when he created the world."
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Right?
Do you remember the reading? What cards were in there?
I can't actually remember. I need to reread the book.
Yeah, it's your sign.
I
That's so
think
cool, love it.
it was just the concept that stuck with me rather than the actual reading.
I would never have think of anything like that. It's just amazing. Like how advanced she was, like for the times when she was writing all this amazing literature. I mean, when was that?
Yeah.
Was that like the 70s, was it?
I think was it 1980 that
Oh, maybe.
78 Degrees of Wisdom came out? I think it was. But that really changed tarot at the time, didn't it? Because
Yeah, it was massive. That's how my mum
go,
learned, was from that book. That got her onto the whole tarot reading thing.
I think a big part of her influence was kind of like merging two different streams of the tarot tradition, where there was like the divinatory, fortune telling version of tarot, and then there was like the occult, esoteric version of tarot that like hermetic orders would have. And she sort of merged the two, so you could do anything with the tarot after Rachel Pollack. You could ask for advice about your everyday life, but you could also ask for the secrets of the universe.
Was she a witch?
I don't know if she identified as a witch. I think she identified as a goddess worshipper, but I don't know about if she was a witch. If she wasn't a witch in name,
In spirit.
yeah.
I mean, she died only recently, didn't she? Was it like 23 at the age of 77?
Yeah.
Wow, what a legend.
Actually, you were asking if she identified as a witch. I remember reading somewhere that she identified as a heretic.
I don't really know what that means.
Like, heretic, like someone who has beliefs about religion that would get them excommunicated by the church.
Sounds like a witch.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh, bless her. Proper massive inspiration to you then, by the sounds of it.
Definitely. Yeah, she's kind of my hero. As you mentioned that she died recently, and I always feel so sad because I never like wrote to her or anything. If she was still alive, I would write her like fan mail, but she's not. And it makes me so,
Oh,
yeah. Even though she never knew who I was, but I sort of grieve for her, even though
yeah.
she's a stranger.
Not a stranger to you, though. I mean, massive part of your life, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned you are a poet. I
Mm.
love poetry. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about your poetry.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been writing poetry all my life, ever since I was 5 or 6. Since I found this connection with the great goddess, I write a lot of devotional poetry for her and also a lot of like mystical poetry. My big inspiration recently has been the Bhakti poets of India. Have you ever heard of the Bhakti poets?
Only from you when I was looking at your Instagram last night. There you go.
People like Ed, Kabir, Tulsidas, and yeah, they wrote like the most. Often it's quite funny poetry. There's Bhakti poems where the poet addresses God as like her boyfriend who like does everything for her, or they could be quite like there's like this cheekiness to Bhakti poetry that I love. It's quite erotic as well. It can often be. It's about becoming like the divine's lover, you know? Before I started writing this style of poetry, I was writing a lot of poetry. I was writing a lot of, I guess I would call it trans feminist poetry about the sort of the power and the wisdom that comes from transitioning genders. Very inspired by this essay, Archetypal Transsexuality by Rachel Pollack that I mentioned. The common thread throughout all of it is like mythology. I just love to write mythological poems in like the voice of a figure from mythology and imagine like a new dimension to the story that hasn't been written before, which has sort of been a common thread through the two like phases of my poetry. Tell me about your poetry, Swailes. What do you like to write about? Or
Very contemporary, really, about the struggles of being here now, I guess. And it's all very like parent oriented. I love Tempest.
yes, me
He's
too.
a massive inspiration. So when I write things, I like to hear it in his voice. It's like he's a massive inspiration. Saw him live in Leeds a year ago, and it was probably one of the best gigs I've ever been to. And it was just so raw and wide open to the crowds that were all loving the words that came. And they were really basic set. There were a sound system, Kay on the stage, just doing his rapping and talking. It was just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Hey, Tempest is amazing.
Probably best poet ever.
Have you read that? There's a poetry collection by them, and it's all about Tiresias,
No.
the ancient Greek seer. I can't remember what it's called, but that was a big inspiration for me with like writing about myth through like a trans feminist perspective. Because Tiresias was this seer he changed gender in Greek mythology. And yeah, they wrote a collection in his voice, I think.
I hope we've got the pronouns right. I thought it was he, or is he they now?
I thought it was they, but I don't know.
It changes, you know what I mean? It goes with how their soul is feeling, and I respect that. Totally get it.
Should we look it up? I'm gonna do it now. You can edit out my typing noises, right? He, him, and they, them.
There we go. Nice. Yeah, it was an amazing gig. Before I was a podcaster, I did loads of poetry, and then it's kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit, which is a shame. So I'm working on making time to do more. Yeah, well, distracted more than busy, if I'm honest, just crying at the state of the world and doom scrolling, and it has to stop because it is no good for anybody. So we need to not do it. So instead of going, I'm just going to scroll, we should totally write some poetry.
Your poetry, does it have like a strong political aspect to it?
Not strong, but there is some there. I think the more I do, the more political it'll probably get. It's a sign to get back into that. Have you got some poetry of yours you could share with us?
Yeah.
That would be so good.
This poem is called Pearl. A trans woman, even if she is pre-op, has a yoni already. It is a little higher than might be expected, between the mons pubis and the navel. When I was small, it was a green flower bud. I liked to lie in the bath and look at it, floating on the water. I went through puberty the first time, and it withered. The animals of my world slept underground, and shrouds were laid over the beehives to keep them warm. I came out to myself, and a new bud grew. Folded up tightly, the petals felt painful, like toes in too small shoes. When I went through puberty a second time, my yoni blossomed, a red-orange flower for which there is no name. I lay in the grass, unbuttoned my shirt, and let the pollen-laden wind roll over me like white-tipped waves. What will happen when I have my operation? I'm not exactly sure, only that something is supposed to grow, deep inside the flower, like an oyster pearl.
Oh, gorgeous. It's so powerful and very goosebumpy. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's very, very personal and very powerful.
I can't believe I chose one about my yoni. What was
Great.
I love the ones I could have chosen? Why did I? Anyway.
That's the right poem. It is. It's the right poem.
Okay.
On your website, it said you do performances. So do you actually stand up then and speak out your poetry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
Do you know Bone Down?
No, I've actually been meaning to go to Bone Down.
It's a good one. I've been to a few last summer. I love that they're doing it outside spaces, and it's about reconnecting, standing in parks and stuff. It's such a good idea.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Poets Talking Bollocks?
I know them. I know they do a podcast. And
Yeah.
I met the guys through the poetry festival a couple of years ago. I think it was in Left Bank. Did you go to the poetry festival? It was
Yeah,
so good.
I went to one thing. My best mate Freya she was like shortlisted in one of the categories. I went to her, Freya Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was shortlisted in the competition. So I went to the competition.
We must be there at the same time then, because I did the whole week, yeah? It was so good. I was
Nice.
so inspired by it. What is next for you, Thea? What are you going to be offering in the future? What can we get excited about?
I'm writing a book. It's about tarot myths and mysticism. So I'm working my way through the major arcana of the tarot, and I'm telling some myths or legends or fairy tales about each card or for each card as a way of bringing out the deeper mystical meanings in the cards. I think I'm gonna be uploading a few chapters on my website as I go. I think I have a couple chapters ready to upload actually. So
That's
yeah.
massive. That is so cool. I don't think I knew that. I didn't know you were doing a book.
I only started maybe 4 or 5 months ago, so it's still quite new.
And have you got a deadline for that when it can be out? You just
No,
going as
I'm
you
just
go.
writing it in my own time for now. I don't have like a deal or anything or an agent. I haven't sorted out any of that stuff, so no deadline.
I definitely want a copy, okay? I'm just putting it out there into the ethos. Where can the Bell Witch listeners find you? Plug yourself.
They can find me on my Instagram, which is just called Thea Ayres Tarot. It's just at thea.ayres. And if they want to arrange a reading with me, they can just DM me on Instagram. And they can also find me at the Bookish Type quite regularly. I have like these little pop-ups there. And they can also check out my website, which is just Thea Ayres WordPress. When my chapters of my book come out, they can read them there.
Is that the one in the Berrien Centre? Am I thinking of the right bookstore?
So it used to be in the Merrion Centre, but they've moved it now to, it's just opposite the hospital, Great George Street. Yeah.
Do you have any dates? Is it like a regular monthly thing, or is it just if and when?
It's kind of just if and when, but if you follow me on Instagram, then you'll see the next time that I have one there.
Lovely. Thank you so much for coming on, Thea. It's been a gorgeous talk and I feel so relaxed and grounded. And you've shared some beautiful information, some very deep personal information as well. And so for that, I'm really grateful to you for it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Swailes. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to the Bell Witch podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it for your magical ears. If you would like to support the Bell Witch podcast, you can follow me on Instagram, the Bell Witch podcast, separated by underscores. Join the Patreon for as little as a couple of quid a month, and leave the magic of ratings and reviews wherever you get your podcasts. Stay magical, witches!